Okay, so imagine this. You're holding like the world's best-selling chocolate bar in one hand,
Okay.
and in the other, there's like this forgotten chocolate bar that got discontinued. They look the same, taste the same, but
Yeah.
what made one a global hit?
Mm.
That's the power of copywriting.
It really is.
And today we're going to try and extract its secrets from your source material, which is a YouTube interview with a guy called Harry Dry.
Ah, hairy dry. Yeah.
And he's a copywriting expert known for his like super simple but really effective style.
Yeah.
And he's built this whole successful business teaching people, just like you, how to write better. So whether you're writing emails, social media posts, or even just trying to be more persuasive in everyday life, we're going to like really unpack Harry's key principles so you can level up your communication game.
I think, what's fascinating about copywriting is that most people don't realize how much it actually influences their decisions on a daily basis.
It's true. We're talking about everything from like those irresistible ads that made you buy those shoes, the ones you didn't need,
Exactly.
to the like perfectly crafted email subject line that got you to open a newsletter that you normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, yeah.
So how does he do it?
Well, one of the first things that he emphasizes is something called the visualize, falsify, unique test. And this is something he applies to every single sentence.
Every sentence.
Every sentence he writes. He really goes through these, he argues that you should be asking yourself 3 key questions about every sentence that you write. And the first one is, can you visualize it?
Okay, I can kind of see where he's going with this.
Yeah.
Because, I think we all know that the human brain is just wired to remember concrete images, much better than abstract kind of concept.
Exactly. For example, which is more memorable? Irishman, Pitbull, Leg of Lamb, or something like seamless transition.
Well, definitely the Irishman, Pitbull, and Leg of Lamb.
Yeah.
I can, like, practically picture that scene in my head.
And that's the point, right? It's
Yeah.
that vivid imagery is what grabs the attention and makes your writing more memorable.
So, like, I'm getting it. Use the visualize test to make your writing pop off the page.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next question in his test?
So the second question is,
Yeah.
can you falsify it? And this is about making bold claims that are either verifiably true or demonstrably false. It's about making people pay attention.
He's saying make statements that are specific and grounded in reality.
Exactly.
Because if someone tells you some vague, generic statement,
Yeah,
you're less likely to actually engage with it, right?
absolutely.
But if they make some bold claim that's either clearly true or clearly false,
Yeah,
then you're way more likely to, like, actually pay attention.
absolutely.
And, like, form an opinion about it.
Exactly.
Okay, so I get that.
Yeah.
So visualize it, falsify it. What's the third thing?
And the third question is, can nobody else say it? And this is where you find your unique angle and voice to stand out in a sea of sameness.
Like that classic Volkswagen ad. Your car has 5 numbers on the speedometer, Volvo has 6.
Exactly.
I mean, it's simple, but it's like instantly it differentiates Volvo, and it just kind of implies they offer something more than everyone else. Okay, visualize it, falsify it, make it unique.
Mm-hmm.
So then how do we actually like write it? And
Yeah.
Harry uses this this kind of insider copywriting term, mommy.
Yeah, mommy. So mommy refers to swapping out literal words for more evocative visual ones. And, it's like,
So instead of saying media player, you say 1,000 songs in your pocket.
precisely.
Yeah, you don't literally have like 1,000 songs just crammed in there, but it's
Yeah.
so much more impactful.
It is. It creates that sense of wonder and possibility that connects with the audience on a much more emotional level.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture here. But Harry also says that copywriting is arguing, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So how do we argue effectively with our words?
Well, the best copy, it doesn't just list features.
Right.
It makes a compelling case. And Harry actually, he walks us through his entire process for creating an ad for his own copywriting course.
Oh, wow.
And he starts with a simple idea and then finds visual inspiration from, of all things, another Volkswagen ad.
So I guess visuals really are important.
They are.
But, I mean, he's a copywriting expert, right?
Mhm.
So why does he even need to go through this whole process to make an ad?
Well, that's the thing about good writing, right? It rarely happens in the first go. It's about embracing the iterative process. So even experts like Harry, they go through multiple drafts and revisions, constantly refining and tweaking until it's irresistible.
It's so true. Even we like have to edit these podcast scripts like a
Yeah,
lot
that's
to get it just right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the ad. How does Harry actually like structure his argument to make it so compelling?
So he uses what he calls the two choices framework.
Two choices.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he presents two paths, right? The difficult, expensive corporate way to grow a business,
Okay.
and then the smarter, more effective copywriting way.
Mm-hmm.
And this really simplifies a complex decision and makes the right choice clear.
That's so clever. It's like, it's that natural human desire to take the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And you can adapt this framework to so many of your own, like, arguments, whether you're writing a marketing campaign or even trying to, like, convince your friend to try that new restaurant that you love.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and Harry, he doesn't just talk the talk, right?
Yeah.
He holds himself to incredibly high standards.
Mm-hmm.
He says that, a multi-billionaire mentor once told him that maintaining insanely high standards is one of the keys to success in any field.
I can see how that would apply to anything, really.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
what does that actually look like for a writer?
Well, he describes that knowing it's good, feeling is a sense of completeness where nothing can be added or taken away.
Oh, wow.
He won't let anything go out unless he feels it's like a 9 out of 10 or above.
Oh, wow.
And to get to that point, he even goes on these intense writing retreats where talking is banned until dinner.
Wow, complete silence.
Yeah.
I admire his dedication,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I could do that. I think,
Get tense.
well, focus is super important. I wonder if that actually works for everyone.
It's a good question.
Okay, so we've covered the visualize, falsify, unique test,
Yep.
mommy, and how copywriting is arguing.
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of copywriting gems does Harry have for us?
So he has a very unique perspective on facts. And most people think of facts as dry and boring,
Yeah.
but Harry sees them as the seeds of great stories.
So instead of just, like, listing facts, you need to think about the story behind those facts.
Exactly. He uses this example. Dunkin' Donuts was caught refilling Heinz ketchup bottles with generic ketchup.
Oh, I remember that. There was a whole scandal about that.
Right. Think about all the different ad campaigns you could create from that one fact.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. It speaks to authenticity, brand loyalty, maybe even corporate deception.
Oh, my God. That's amazing. He really does find inspiration everywhere.
He does.
So what's the takeaway for our listener?
Start seeing the world through a storyteller's lens.
Okay.
What seemingly mundane facts can you transform into compelling narratives that resonate with your audience?
I love that. So let's move on to Harry's newsletter.
Okay.
So everyone always says it's incredibly engaging. So what's his secret?
Well, a big part of it is his incredibly simple writing style. He uses short paragraphs, vivid metaphors, and ruthlessly eliminates any unnecessary words. He compares short paragraphs to monkey bars, saying they're easy to swing between.
That's such a great visual. I'm starting to think I should use more metaphors in my writing.
You should.
Yeah.
He makes a good point when he says that if you find yourself writing a paragraph that's 3 lines or longer, there's a good chance you're not being as clear as you could be.
Oh, okay. That's a great tip. Keep it concise and to the point. What else?
Another thing about his newsletter, he always includes 5 examples. And almost every example has some element of conflict.
So he's showing like contrasting viewpoints or approaches to
It-
make his points like more memorable like,
Exactly.
and engaging. Again, like the pickle juice and orange juice analogy. I love that.
I love that word.
The pickle juice makes the orange juice taste sweeter, and the orange juice makes the pickle juice taste more sour.
It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
crazy. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's a simple but effective way to illustrate how contrast enhances perception.
I love that. Okay.
He's also very intentional about the length of his paragraphs. In fact, he hasn't written a paragraph longer than 2 lines since March of 2021. He even says he writes directly in ConvertKit, his email platform, so he can see his writing as it will appear to his readers.
Well, that's clever.
What I find most impressive is how he incorporates this simple, clear style into everything he writes, even something as casual as a newsletter intro.
Oh, okay. Like, I'm looking at the example that he gives us here, and he starts by describing his, like, environment. So, like, the time, the place, what's happening around him. And then he mentions how he wants his writing to feel out of the oven, like fresh and warm to the touch. It's like he's, like, setting the stage for a story, even in, like, an intro.
He is. He really does believe that simplicity is key. But he also says that you can't write simply. You can only rewrite simply.
Okay, let's dive into that. What does
Yeah.
he mean by that?
He emphasizes the importance of ruthlessly eliminating any words that aren't working for you. He has his own take on Kaplan's Law of Words, which states that any words that aren't working for you are actively working against you.
That's powerful. We should all take that to heart.
I think,
He says that most writers don't take this law seriously enough.
oh, okay.
We should be ruthless in our editing and always be on the lookout for words that are cluttering our message. It's about finding the most precise and evocative language possible and using it sparingly. I love how he gives his lines room to breathe. Like, his newsletter is so visually appealing, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
He's definitely intentional about creating a visual rhythm that makes the reading experience more enjoyable.
Okay, so we've covered Harry's visualize, falsify, unique test, the concept of mommy, his two choices framework, his fascination with facts as stories, and his incredibly simple writing style. What else is there?
Well, another thing that sets Harry apart is his mastery of structure.
Ah, yes. He's always dividing things into clear categories and using parallelism to create like a rhythm and balance.
It's true. For example, he breaks down copywriting into 3 buckets. Who are you talking to? What are you saying? And how are you saying it?
Mm-hmm.
He also uses a great example from an essay he wrote about getting 10,000 readers.
Oh, I remember that essay. Didn't he divide it into like things that don't scale and momentum, the next 99,900?
Yes. Such a clever way to create a clear framework for a complex topic.
And he does this with everything. His newsletter format is always the same.
Always the same.
His courses have like very clear structures. He's incredibly consistent.
He is. You know, it's all about thinking about structure, not just in terms of paragraphs and sentences, but also the overall organization of your ideas.
Mhm.
He's a big fan of using headings to break up long blocks of text.
It makes the writing so much more scannable, especially online, where people are more likely to just skim than read every word.
Absolutely.
And speaking of structure, let's talk about how Harry structures his like creative process.
Okay.
So this is where the importance of silence comes in.
Silence, yes.
Wait, silence, what does that have to do with writing?
Well, he believes in giving yourself the time and space to think, to let ideas percolate, and to disconnect from the constant noise and stimulation of the digital world.
It's like hitting the reset button for your brain.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be helpful for creativity.
He talks about how he often spends time walking in nature, listening to music, or simply sitting in silence to allow his mind to wander.
That's so different from the way most people approach creativity.
Yeah.
Like, they just sit down at the computer and expect brilliant ideas to just like flow on demand.
Yeah, but Harry argues that creativity often happens in the spaces between, in the moments when you're not actively trying to be creative.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And, he doesn't just talk about silence, he also takes action. Remember those writing retreats we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, he does them with a mentor he calls cultural tutors, and they don't speak until dinner time.
Wow, that's commitment. I'm starting to understand why he's so successful.
Yeah, he's very disciplined.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in part 1 of this deep dive,
We have.
but there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So when we come back, we'll delve into Harry's thoughts on artificial intelligence, his tips for like finding inspiration, and how he deals with self-doubt.
Can't wait.
We'll also uncover even more copywriting secrets to help you level up your communication game. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Last time we left off talking about how Harry structures his creative process with like a heavy emphasis on silence and focused action. Now let's get to something that's been on my mind. Artificial intelligence, AI. Do you think a computer can be a good writer?
He did bring up AI in the interview, and it's clear he has some pretty strong opinions on the subject.
Yeah.
But he believes that AI is just a tool.
Okay.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
Right.
He also says it's only as good as the person using it.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like, a hammer can build a house or it can like break a window.
Exactly.
But what does that actually mean in terms of like AI and writing?
Well, Harry believes that AI lacks the lived experience and conviction that make great writing truly compelling.
Mm.
And he gives this great example from the legendary ad man David Ogilvy, who famously wrote, "At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in this new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock."
I love that quote. It's so evocative. You can almost hear the quiet hum of that clock. But what does that have to do with AI?
Well, Ogilvy was able to write that line because he had actually experienced it.
Oh,
He had sat in the car, driven it at 60 miles an hour, and noticed the quiet hum of the electric clock. It's that kind of attention to detail and ability to connect personal experience with a broader message that makes great writing stand out.
So AI can't do that. Like, can't it just like scan a bunch of Rolls-Royce reviews and find that detail?
It could probably find that detail, but it wouldn't understand the nuance, the feeling, the context that makes that detail so powerful.
Okay.
It's the difference between reporting and storytelling.
Mm.
Think about writers like, Charles Bukowski or Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
Their writing is so powerful because it's rooted in their own lived experiences.
So you're saying AI can string words together, but it can't create art. It can't capture the human experience.
Exactly. Harry even said that any kind of robot can't see anything and doesn't believe anything. It's a thought-provoking statement that really challenges us to think about, like, the unique qualities that make us human.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
So AI might be able to help us with grammar or generate content ideas, but it can't replace the human writer. Speaking of uniquely human, what about inspiration? Harry seems to be just brimming with ideas. Where does he get all his inspiration from?
Well, he believes that inspiration can come from anywhere and encourages writers to look beyond the obvious.
Like, don't just read other copywriting books.
Right. He talks about finding inspiration in overheard conversations, street art, even music.
That reminds me of something he said earlier about how much he loves facts.
Yeah.
He sees them as, like, the seeds of great stories.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Yeah.
It's about being curious, paying attention to the world around you, and finding the unexpected connections that spark your imagination.
So how do we actually do that? How do we train ourselves to see the world through this, like, copywriter's lens?
He encourages us to, keep a notebook or a note-taking app handy to jot down ideas as they come to us.
Oh, I actually do that.
You do?
I have a note on my phone called Story Ideas, and I just, like, dump random thoughts and observations in there.
That's great. You're already on the right track. He also emphasizes the importance of being mindful of the content you consume. Be selective about what you allow into your mental space.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in the, like, endless scroll of social media or the 24-hour news cycle.
Absolutely.
But if you want to be a good writer, you need to, like, feed your mind with quality input.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about consuming content. It's about engaging with it. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, and think critically about what you're reading, watching, or listening to.
So be a conscious consumer and an active thinker.
Got it.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of Harry's, like, key principles, but let's get real for a second. What about those times when we stare at a blank page and feel completely stuck? What does Harry have to say about writer's block?
So Harry is pretty candid about his own struggles with self-doubt and how that can sometimes lead to writer's block. But he says that it's a natural part of the creative process.
It's comforting to know that even someone as successful as Harry deals with this stuff.
Yeah, we all do.
But how does he push through it? Does he have any, like, practical strategies?
He says that he tries not to focus too much on the outcome
Okay.
and instead just focuses on the process. He also emphasizes the importance of having faith in yourself and your abilities.
So don't worry about being perfect, just start writing.
Exactly. He encourages us to celebrate our successes no matter how small and to not be afraid to put our work out there.
Okay.
And if you're really struggling, he suggests stepping away from the computer and doing something else for a while.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, listen to music, or do something that sparks your creativity.
That's good advice. Sometimes you just need to, like, take a break and let your mind wander. All right, let's move on to another important topic, structure. We talked about how Harry uses structure in his writing, but does he have any tips for how we can structure our thoughts to, like, come up with better ideas?
Well, he talks about how he often uses outlines or lists to organize his thoughts before he starts writing.
Okay.
And this helps him see the big picture and make sure his writing is cohesive and well-structured.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I'm a big fan of outlining myself. It helps me break down complex topics into, like, manageable chunks.
Yeah, exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of using headings and subheadings to break up long blocks of text.
Makes sense. It makes the writing more scannable and easier to digest, especially online.
Absolutely.
I'm noticing a theme here.
Oh, really? What's that?
Well, it seems like a lot of Harry's advice is about making things easier for the reader.
Yeah.
Whether it's using simple language, short paragraphs, or clear headings, he's always thinking about how to make his writing as accessible and enjoyable as possible.
That's a great observation. And speaks to his core philosophy of putting the reader first. He understands that people are busy and have short attention spans, so he wants to make it as easy as possible for them to understand and engage with his message.
So it's not about like showing off how smart you are or
Right.
using fancy words.
Yeah.
It's about communicating effectively.
Absolutely.
Speaking of communicating effectively, what about writing for a specific audience? Does Harry have any advice on how we can like tailor our writing to connect with different groups of people?
Absolutely. He's a big believer in knowing your audience and understanding their needs, interests, and pain points.
Okay.
He says you should always be asking yourself, who am I writing for?
Hmm.
And what do they care about?
You know, it sounds like basic marketing advice, but I bet most people don't actually think about it when they're writing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely guilty of that.
It's easy to get caught up in our own heads and forget that we're writing for other people.
Right.
So Harry emphasizes the importance of doing your research. Know your audience's demographics, interests, and pain points.
So, like, if you're writing a blog post about gardening, you need to know if you're talking to, like, beginners or experienced gardeners. And you'll adjust, like, your tone and the complexity of the information based on, who you're talking to.
Exactly. And it's not just about the information you provide, it's also about how you present it.
All right.
The language you use, the tone you adopt, even the visuals you choose should all be tailored to your specific audience.
So then how do you balance writing for a specific audience with staying true to yourself?
That's a great question. And it's something that Harry addresses directly.
Yeah.
He encourages writers to write in their own natural voice
Mm-hmm.
and to let their personality shine through.
So don't try to be someone you're not.
Exactly. He believes that people can spot a fake from a mile away
Yeah.
and that the most effective writing is always genuine and heartfelt.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you find that balance between being yourself and still, like, appealing to your target audience?
It's about finding your niche.
Okay.
What are
Huh.
you passionate about? What do you know a lot about? Where do your interests intersect with the needs of your audience?
So, like, if I'm passionate about sustainable living and my audience is, like, interested in saving money,
Yeah.
I could write about how to, like, reduce your energy consumption
Yeah.
and lower your utility bills.
Exactly. You're staying true to yourself while still providing value to your audience.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
And I love that. It's like finding that sweet spot where your passions align with the needs of the people you want to reach. Okay, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something that's essential for like any creative person, dealing with self-doubt. We all experience it, but how does Harry manage those feelings of insecurity that can like creep in and sabotage our work?
Harry's very open about his own struggles with self-doubt.
Yeah.
He even talks about how he often compares himself to other writers and feels like he's not good enough.
Oh, I totally relate to that. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game, especially in the age of social media. But how does he deal with it? Does he have any like practical strategies?
He does. He emphasizes the importance of focusing on the process, not the outcome. He says that when he starts to feel overwhelmed by self-doubt, he reminds himself to just focus on the next step,
Mm-hmm.
the next sentence,
Yeah.
the next paragraph.
That's great advice. It's like breaking down a big, scary goal into smaller, more manageable steps.
Exactly. And he also talks about the importance of celebrating your successes, no matter how small.
Yeah.
He says to acknowledge and appreciate your accomplishments rather than dwelling on your perceived shortcomings.
So don't beat yourself up over the things you haven't done yet. Celebrate the things you have accomplished. It's a good reminder to be, like, kind to ourselves.
Be kind to yourself.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground on self-doubt. But there's another side to that coin, right? Feedback. How does Harry handle criticism, especially when it comes to, like, his writing? Is he open to it? Does he seek it out?
So Harry believes that feedback is crucial for improving your writing.
Okay.
He mentions that he regularly shares his work with his brother, who is also a writer, for feedback.
That's great. It's so valuable to have, like, someone you trust who can give you honest and constructive criticism.
Absolutely.
But, not all feedback is created equal, right?
Right.
So how do you know who to listen to?
He emphasizes the importance of finding feedback partners who are both supportive and challenging.
Okay.
You need people who will encourage you, but also push you to do your best work.
And it's important to remember that not all feedback is going to be positive.
Right.
You need to be able to, like, take constructive criticism without taking it personally.
Absolutely. And sometimes you might even get feedback that you disagree with,
Yeah.
but it's still important to consider it and see if there's anything you can learn from it.
That can be tough. It's hard to separate our work from our egos, but if we want to grow as writers, we need to be open to feedback, even when it's uncomfortable.
It's true.
Okay, we've covered feedback and how to deal with, like, the not so fun aspects of writing, like self-doubt and criticism. Let's switch gears and talk about something a little more positive. Passion. How important is it to be passionate about what you write about?
So Harry believes that passion is essential for good writing.
Okay.
He says, write about what you're passionate about,
Yeah.
and that this passion shines through in your work.
It makes sense. When you're genuinely interested in a topic, it like comes through in your writing. Your enthusiasm is contagious. But what if you have to write about something you're not passionate about? What if it's like a work assignment or something like that?
That's a great question. And it's something that a lot of writers struggle with.
Yeah.
Harry's advice is to find a way to connect with the topic on some level, even if it's not something you're initially excited about.
So like find an angle that interests you or do some research to learn more about the subject.
Exactly. The more you know about something, the more likely you are to find something interesting about it.
Yeah.
And remember, even if you're not writing about your dream topic, you can still bring your unique voice and perspective to the table.
That's a good point. It's not just about the what, it's about the how. You can make even the most mundane topic interesting if you approach it with, like, the right mindset and writing style. Okay, let's talk about something practical. Writing habits. Harry seems to be a very disciplined writer. Does he have any tips for how we can develop a consistent writing routine?
So Harry's a big believer in the power of habits.
Okay.
He says that the best way to become a better writer is to write regularly.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? Like, life gets in the way, right?
He suggests setting aside a specific time each day or week for writing and treating it like any other important appointment.
Okay.
He also talks about the importance of finding a writing routine that works for you.
Yeah.
Some people prefer to write first thing in the morning,
Right.
while others are more productive at night.
It's all about finding what works for you and then sticking to it.
Exactly. And it's important to be flexible. If you can't stick to your schedule exactly, that's okay. Just try to make up for it later.
So be consistent, but don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or two.
Exactly. The key is to keep writing. The more you write, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about writing new material. Harry emphasizes the importance of rewriting.
Right. Right. He said you can't write simply. You can only rewrite simply.
It's about taking the time to refine your work, to cut out the unnecessary words and phrases, and to make sure your message is clear and concise.
It can feel tedious, though.
It can.
So do you have any tips for making rewriting less, painful?
Well, Harry suggests reading your work out loud.
Okay.
It helps you catch awkward phrasing and identify areas that need more work.
Mm-hmm.
He also recommends taking breaks between drafts to come back with fresh eyes.
Those are great tips. Okay, I think we're ready for part 3 of this deep dive.
There's still a lot more to uncover. We'll explore his thoughts on simplicity, finding your voice, and the importance of being a lifelong learner. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our, deep dive into the world of copywriting with Harry Dry.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. We've covered so much, everything from, Harry's visualize, falsify, unique test to the power of, facts as stories. But before we, wrap up, I want to touch on something he said that, really resonated with me, and that was the idea that you can't write simply, you can only rewrite simply.
He is all about clarity and conciseness. He believes that the best writing is often the simplest.
It's so easy to get caught up in trying to sound smart or impressive.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about communicating effectively.
Exactly. Harry encourages writers to use plain language and to avoid jargon.
And he hates unnecessary words.
He does.
Remember his take on Kaplan's law of words?
Oh, yeah.
Any words that aren't working for you are actively working against you.
That's right.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, he's ruthless about cutting out anything that doesn't add value to the message.
It's like decluttering your writing. You're getting rid of all the excess stuff that's just taking up space and making it harder for the reader to see, what's important.
Exactly. It's about making every word count.
And he has this great tip for making sure your writing is as clear as possible.
What's that?
Read it out loud.
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah, me too.
It helps you catch awkward phrasing and identify areas that need more work. It's like you're hearing your writing with fresh ears.
Totally.
No.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to write effectively.
Yeah.
But what about finding your unique voice? Does Harry have any advice on that?
So he's a big believer in writing in your own natural voice and letting your personality shine through. He says, the most effective writing is always genuine and heartfelt.
But how do you do that when you're writing for a specific audience or for a particular purpose?
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions align with the needs of the people you want to reach.
So it's not about trying to be someone you're not.
Right.
It's about like finding your own unique way of expressing yourself within the context of like what you're writing about.
Exactly. And he encourages writers to experiment with different styles and voices until they find what feels most authentic to them.
It's like trying on different clothes until you find an outfit that fits you perfectly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right. Okay.
And remember, finding your voice is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time and practice.
Speaking of journeys, Harry emphasizes the importance of being a lifelong learner.
He does. He's constantly reading, taking courses, and trying new things to expand his knowledge and skills.
And he encourages writers to do the same.
He does.
He says the best writers are always seeking out new knowledge and skills.
Yeah, it's about staying curious and challenging yourself to grow.
So don't be afraid to, like, step outside of your comfort zone and try new things. You never know what you might learn.
That's right.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the visualize, falsify, unique test to the power of silence and the importance of rewriting.
Yeah.
We've explored like a wide range of Harry's copywriting insights, but before we wrap things up, is there one like key takeaway that you want our listener to remember?
You know, for me, it's the idea that great writing is about connecting with your audience on a human level. It's about sharing your unique perspective and leaving them with something to think about.
I love that. And for me, it's the importance of clarity and conciseness.
Yes.
Every word should be working hard to convey your message.
Absolutely.
So as you go forth on your writing journey, remember to visualize, falsify, make it unique, and rewrite.
Rewrite.
And don't forget to find your voice, stay curious, and embrace the power of silence.
Happy writing.